In this lesson, we'll review the design process for Banshee Energy Soda and then begin implementing the logo inside Illustrator. Alright, so I've got this banshee_sketches.psd open here. You'll find that in your referenced files folder. So let me go ahead and bring over this banshee_process file first though. So this is also in that referenced file folder. So we talked in the last lesson a little bit about building a logo for Banshee Energy Soda. Now this is a soda that you might purchase at either a grocery store or a convenience store, but it's infused with certain properties that give the drinker of the soda extra energy. So this is very similar to many of the other energy products that you see out on the market today. The stores are saturated with this type of a product. So we have quite a bit of competition that we need to set ourselves apart from. So with that in mind, we went ahead and listed out the problem as well as the objectives here within this document. So you can see that we're going to design a logo that effectively promotes the product Banshee Energy Soda, and we're going to try and sell this to our target audience, who's individuals ages 18 to 35. We're also trying to communicate that there's a refreshing burst of energy with this product as well. So now research done can be on primarily the target audience, being males and females ages 18 to 35. What are their likes, their dislikes? How do they, what appeals to them when they purchase a product like this? We also need to do some research into what the competition does, being that the market is so saturated with this type of product. So we definitely want to be aware of what else is going to be on the shelves next to our product. Now, also like to do some research when it comes to historical stylistic direction for the product as well. So what's been done in the past? What are some key historical styles when it comes to graphic design? So let's go ahead and bounce over to this Photoshop document at this point, and we'll look at some of the brainstorming that I've done. So with this one, let me go ahead and hide this sketch layer and just show you this list layer first. So again, I started off with a word list for this particular logo. So just kind of going through and listing out words and terms that are very visual, that to me relate to this Banshee Energy Soda. Now, a really interesting story around this is that if you're not sure exactly what a banshee is, it actually comes from Irish lore, and according to Irish lore, it's either a female spirit or a fairy who wails or screams prior to someone dying. So there's actually pretty negative connotation around the term banshee that we should overcome. But, you know, thinking about, yeah, there's some negative connotation to that, maybe there's some conceptual relevance that we can pull from the meaning of the word banshee and tie into our logo that we're doing for this product. So with that said, feel free to read through that list if you'd like to. I'm going to go ahead and run up here to the sketches. So being that really kind of according to Irish lore, there's this fairy or this female that screams. I'm thinking in terms of sound waves and other things that we can somehow visualize to incorporate into this logo. Now, obviously, you can see some of these sketches I've played with kind of the just having a literal female in sort of a wailing position or a screaming position. So that is one possible direction that we could go. And that's kind of the literal take on the word. But really, the root or the essence of that word, there is that sound. The sound is, in my opinion, the essence of that word. So distilling it down to kind of the essence, I'm now looking at different ways that we can try and visualize something that's audible, a sound wave. So what are some different ways that we can visualize that? So you can see I've got some kind of these concentric circles here. I've also got kind of this jagged, almost a heartbeat monitor type of a line here. Playing with several spiraling type shapes here, as well as thinking about our target audience. How do individuals ages 18 to 35 interpret sound? Well, this is the digital age. An equalizer is a way to visualize sound. So playing with some ideas here that have to do with an equalizer as well. Now, another possible direction that you can kind of see, I've spent quite a bit of time just playing around here with my sketch, is sort of, again, going to that tattoo art or that really ornate typography that could possibly say Banshee. Now, I've also started to try and incorporate some of these elements that are kind of trademark of visualizing a sound wave here. You can see here some of these concentric crescents that we've kind of played with over here a little bit. So I'm kind of incorporating some of that into the letter forms that I'm sketching, as well as giving them a little bit of almost a tattoo-like feel. So let's come over here, and you can see here that I've gone ahead, and what helps me when I'm doing typography sometimes is to take it kind of from a sketch to a realized form. A lot of times I'll start to fill in the letter forms, and just so I can see the positive and negative shapes around them, looking kind of at the negative space around in these areas and kind of examining kind of the relationships that are evolving between both the positive and negative forms. So with that said, let's go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and hide this sketch layer, and let me go ahead and just save this file, because I'm going to bounce over into Illustrator right now, and we're going to drop this in so we can begin building it. So let me go ahead and bring up Illustrator here, and this is the Lesson 12 Begin file if you want to open this up and follow along. So we'll want to come over here to File and Place, and we're going to come over to the referenced files. And there we go, Banshee Sketches. So we'll go ahead and place that in, and you can see here that looks exactly like it did in Photoshop, only we've got this big blue X through it. So I'm going to come over to my Layers panel at this point, and let me just come over here to the right of this layer and double click. And in this Layer Options dialog, I'm going to mark this as a template layer. So in doing that, a couple things happened. You can see everything got a little bit grayed out here, as well as a little lock appeared next to it. So being that that's now a template layer, we can create a new layer on top of that by clicking this button right here. And we can begin to build our artwork on top. And now I don't have to worry about accidentally moving my sketch around, and it's actually kind of faded out so that we can actually construct things on top of it. So all right, great. So really quickly, let's go ahead and choose this one on the right here. I'm going to zoom in on that. And let's go ahead and quickly kind of run through the process of building this. So zooming in and zooming out, again, using Control Spacebar or Control Alt Spacebar. And we're going to basically be using a handful of tools to kind of trace this artwork. So let's go ahead and, again, examine the two tools here. This is the Selection tool, and then the Direct Selection tool right next to it. And we're going to be using both of these two, as well as our pen tool, and the pen tool's right here. So notice that I'm going to select this tool first and then the pen tool, because what that allows me to do is hold down the Control key and quickly access that Direct Selection tool. So the pen tool is a great tool because it allows you to draw out these things called anchor points. So if we click and drag like that, you can see we can drag these little handle things out of this anchor point. So anchor point is basically where a path changes directions. So we want to pull these handles out so that we can control the curvature of that path as it passes through. So if we want to come in, we drag those handles out to about there. I like to drag them in the same direction as what I'm tracing. So I can hold Control down and I can move those around if I need to. We'll come in and place another point right about there, another anchor point. And we can also hold down the space bar as we're pulling out those handles to reposition that anchor point. So that's a very handy trait. So we're starting to run into a problem, because now we've got this stroke, this black line that's being applied to our path. And eventually we're going to end up with this white fill color that's going to hide our sketch. So at this point, I like to switch into what's known as outline mode. And you can do that by coming up to the View drop-down, choosing Outline right there. Keyboard shortcut is Control Y. And that way, it reduces what we're seeing of the artwork that we are creating down to just a simple path. So we can't see any of the strokes or fills that are being applied to the path. So I've reached this point kind of at the crest of this the stem of the bee, and we need to kind of turn the opposite direction. So I've pulled these handles out. So now if I hold down the Alt key as I'm pulling these out, I can break this handle free. And you can see here now the other handle is staying put. And now we're going to direct this path in the opposite direction. So we'll direct it sort of like that. Again, coming in with the pen tool, Dropping another anchor point right about there, pulling out those handles. Just going to continue tracing around here. Just like so. Now I am working on a pressure sensitive tablet, so drawing on the screen like I am, my hand tends to get in my way a little bit. So this curve right here doesn't quite match our sketch. We can also hold down Control and just simply grab the curve itself, and we can kind of stretch that into position, just like so. And we'll come in here and drag in another point. So this is probably a good opportunity to just kind of let you know that whenever I'm working on a logo design, I like to work pretty heavily just with my sketches to begin with. I don't like to go to the implementation step really not having a solid sketch. So I think you'll find that pretty common in the design world. Let me come in here. I'm going to hold Alt, and we're going to break this handle free right there. All right, great. So I've drawn here my first shape. Let me bounce out of outline mode, hitting Control Y, and you can see here that we've got a black stroke with a white fill. Let's go ahead and click this button to get rid of the fill, and this button to change the stroke to the fill color. So now you can see here that we've got a little bit of editing probably should be done. I feel like that shape is a little bit wonky, so we'll come in here. I'll hit A to access my direct selection tool. We'll just kind of start smoothing this out just a little bit. Making sure that we're staying pretty close to the sketch in terms of the forms that we're making, but we're also making sure that maybe some of the things in the sketch that weren't quite shaped the way they need to. If there's something like that, when you're creating the shapes here in Illustrator, it'll start to become more evident. So you can start to kind of correct those things as you go. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and trace the rest of these letter forms here using the exact same process that we used to trace this B. So if you want to, go ahead and pause this or wait until you've kind of caught up to me to start the next lesson. Get some practice in kind of tracing these letter forms, and in the next lesson we'll go ahead and wrap this course up by finishing out our logo.